But they simply repeat this enough. Women are only earn 80 cents on the dollar and leave it at that. That's what our culture wants, is something they can grab in a kernel of information so they can feel like that they understand something. And they're really being misled a lot.
Catherine Spiller at Ms. Magazine, I asked her about the wage gap, the gender wage gap, and is it a myth? And she said, no, it is the same amount of experience, the same amount of hours, the same jobs, the same ages, how much vacation time they take off, how much time they spend at home with their family. It's completely equal, and men make more.
Okay, you want me to address that?
Please, yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the wage gap myth for a moment. When I did the research for why men earn more to find out whether the wage gap in fact was a myth, I discovered that there are 25 work-life choices that men and women make that are different. Each of those work-life choices leads to men earning more money, and each of those work-life choices leads on average to women having more balanced lives. Usually a person having a more balanced life has a better life. And so in many respects, just to be brief about it, men should really be trained to learn from women how to have more balanced lives. The road to high pay is a toll road. Earning more money is not about fulfillment. Earning more money is usually about working more hours, working at more hazardous jobs. What the feminists and what the Bureau of Labor Statistics hasn't controlled for is the same type of subspecializations and years worked and hours worked. So let me explain why that is not the case. So for example, you do have statistics saying doctors and comparing doctors to doctors. That seems like the same job being compared to each other. But when you look more closely at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics data, you find that doctors are all doctors, and that men are more likely to be, let's say, cardiologists or surgeons. Women are more likely to be general practitioners, and general practitioners almost always make less, no matter being male or female, than surgeons or cardiologists. So you really have to compare cardiologists to cardiologists. But then even within cardiology, some specializations make more than other specializations. So when you take cardiology down to, and compare cardiologist to cardiologist, the wage gap is reduced very significantly. When you compare cardiologists to cardiologists in a certain specialty, or nurse to a nurse, not just in general, male nurses will earn more, but you compare nurse anesthetist to nurse anesthetist, and then you find that the nurse anesthetists make about the same as each other, but still the men make slightly more. Why? Because they've on average been working more years at that. And on average, they're working more hours. The feminists say, well, wait a minute, we're comparing full-time men with full-time women. Correct. Full-time, though, is defined as 35 hours per week or more. You have to define within full-time what 35 or 45 hours a week is worth. Men are far more likely to work more hours full-time than women are full-time, but feminists summarize that as all being equal hours. So what's the difference between a person working 34 hours a week versus 44? It is double the pay for 44 versus 34 hours a week. And so you have to not just say full-time versus full-time is equal hours. You have to look at the number of hours. You have to look at the willingness to move to different locations upon demand. When a woman is far more likely to be home with children, it is not that women work less. They work as much as men do, but they divide their labor between children and the workplace to a much greater degree. So the brief way of understanding the pay gap is to understand that there is not a gap between men and women's pay. There is a gap between mothers and fathers' pay. When you get outside of mothers and fathers, for example, you have women who have never been married and never had children, and men who have never been married and never had children. Control for education, control for the amount of years they've been in the workplace. And the women out-earn the men 117% to 100%. 17% more earned by the women. When there is a married with children, male and female, the woman is far more likely to put more hours into the home And even if she's working full time, she may have been a 55-hour-a-week working woman before, she's likely to cut back to just above 35 hours a week, still be called full time. But she's still working as hard, probably harder than ever before, but she's working to make sure she's close to home. Therefore, she can't commute into the city as easily. She's making sure she's home on time for the children. She's coordinating during the day with other activities and juggling. She's constantly working, but she's now dividing her labor between the home and the office. The degree to which the woman is home, if she's home working full time, the man is working much more outside the home, and therefore his income is going up. If the woman is working full time, the man's income doesn't go up nearly as much because the man puts more time into the home. So when men and women are married with children, they figure out a system that in general leads to the father earning more money outside the home and the women juggling more between the home and the office. We all know this. But feminists have taken what we see all around us all the time with the very sister and brothers of the feminists who are speaking, and they deny all of that to keep the victim power of women earn less than men for the same work. There are so many other dimensions of this that are never mentioned by feminists. You never hear feminists say, well, on average, even men with less education earn more. Is it true? Yes, it is. On average, the man with less education is more likely to be working as a truck driver or a garbage collector, where he gets up at 3 or 4 in the morning, where he may work 60, 70 hours a week, where he may subject himself to physical hazards, because without skills, that's what he feels he needs to do to earn money for the family. Where is the woman likely to be? Collecting garbage, working sewers, working construction, welding? Not as often. Usually working at Nordstrom's, working at a supermarket, working at a steady job that she can control, maybe teaching, where she can control it to a greater degree, but because it's either more fulfilling or it's less likely to be a psychological take-home job, she's paid less, because the more fulfilling the work is, like teaching, the more likely it is to be paid less. The reason it's likely to be paid less is not because women are doing it, but because it is more fulfilling, and when things are fulfilling, more people compete to do things that are fulfilling, so the pay goes down the more people are competing to do it. And so every single nuance that I've just spoken of, zero of those nuances is in the public consciousness. And so therefore, by repeating the discrimination thing, what we're teaching our daughters to do, ironically, is to become more traditional and less free. Let's look at that for a moment. Let's say a husband and a wife are married and they just have children. And so if they believe that the world discriminates against women, the woman is more likely to make the choice of staying home and because the man can earn more being outside of the home, so why not let him earn more? Because once you have children, what do you care about? What's most cost beneficial. So you make a traditional decision about having the man work outside of the home if you think the man's going to earn more working outside of the home. If you teach women the truth, which is that a woman who focuses on the workplace, when there's children and the man is home taking care of the children, that woman out-earns her male counterpart. Out-earns, you say? Or I say? Yes, studies by UCLA and Korn Ferry show that women are promoted to executive levels, vice president or above, at the Fortune 100 companies before the age of 30 in much greater percentages than men are before the age of 30 promoted to vice president or above at Fortune 100 companies. No one knows this because we've been focusing our binoculars on the issue of discrimination against women. When a woman knows something like what I just said and checks it out and sees that it's valid, the wife is more likely to say, maybe I should be the primary breadwinner. And when people know that children raised predominantly by dads do extremely well I don't mean just well, I mean extremely well, depending on their demographic. Because one of the reasons is that children raised by dads have such good boundary enforcement and so on, but the mother never leaves children. So a child raised by a dad is not deserted by mom. Whereas a child raised by mom can be deserted by a dad because the father will get overly caught up in the workplace, come home too late, not come to the recitals on time, and so on. Mothers don't usually do that. They're much more likely to make sure that they come home and pay an adequate amount of attention in addition to the attention that their dads are. So ironically, the feminists are making, by creating victim power, the feminists are encouraging unconsciously and unwittingly a much more conservative and limited flexibility between men and women.